Namaste to all of you. Very warm welcome to this evening's call. Friends, this is the 50th call we are doing in Pragna Bharati since the lockdown. 45, 46 calls have been done where all of you are party to it. And there were other calls with Laghu Udyog Bharati and other calls that we did as well. So overall, this is the 50th call and we are very happy to have Madam Meenakshi Lekhi ji with us. As you all know, she is such a well-known figure in BJP, in the right-wing circles. I shouldn't be calling it right-wing, but then for whatever, yeah, left and right is not our cup of tea. Right in the right sense, as opposed to wrong. So I'm putting it that way. So she is somebody who has really fought ferociously in the TV, in the parliament debates that we have seen, defending the government and defending, the national narrative. We are so proud of her. We are really honored to have her here. As you all know, she's the daughter of the legendary PN Lekhi ji. Now everybody remembers Meenakshi Lekhi ji and her father to be PN Lekhi ji, not the other way around. At least our generation, we all have seen her, at the ground level, grassroots level, doing fantastic job. Madam, after Article 370 was diluted, myself and a few of our Pragna Bharati colleagues, we went to Kashmir. And about a couple of months after that, and the Kashmiri Pandit Samaj remembers you fondly there. The kind of visits that you did, the kind of connection that you did, the kind of assurances you gave at the grassroots level. You're silent and your work really speaks among them, whereas there are a lot of people who make a lot of cacophonic noises on the TV. But unlike them, we are really very proud of you, madam. Friends, today she is going to talk about a topic which is very dear to all of us, which is why there should be a bipartisan approach to national security issues. Why, I mean, when Rafale happens, why do people start making noise? When a Balakot happens, why do people ask for evidence? We are very proud to have Meenakshi ji with us. I request Meenakshi ji to kindly take the floor and speak about it. Thank you, madam.
Namaste. Thanks to everyone for joining in. And let me just clarify in the beginning, Mr. PN Lekhi is my father-in-law. And in-law, I am his daughter. But I'm Meenakshi Lekhi and my maiden name is Meenakshi Khanna. Coming back to the issue of national security and how it has to be bipartisan, I believe every country has its national interests at the core value. And until unless you have national interest as the core value, no country can exist as geographical entity in the map of the world. The culture, the ethos, the commonality. So until unless there is commonality of form, some sort of form, they can be, you cannot identify something, a structure of globe or geography as a nation state. Nation state necessarily needs to have national priorities. And because we must have national priorities, and it is in that context that we must talk about bipartisan approach to national security and safety. I will start with an example. It was a time when Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated by the forces, and I remember on that anniversary, repeatedly year after year, some TV or some anchor or the other will ask that question, what do you have to say? And I will normally say, I say, look, buffers happened in his time. We were the arch critics of that government because we felt a lot of corruption had gone on in arms deal and national interests had been compromised, etc. And for that reason, I may want that person who has wronged my country to be jailed under the law of the land. But when, as a prime minister, he's assassinated, I am not going to celebrate that. And I'm not going to say, I'm not going to accept it, because it was not him as an individual, but he was representing my country and he was the prime minister of this country. So whatever I have to deal with the person internally, I shall do that. But when it comes to my relationship with external forces, my relationship is going to be that anyone who touches the symbols of nation is going to be dealt with firmly by rest of India. Now, this explains my position that when it comes to national interest, we have to distinguish between rivalries, competitiveness, uh, criticism, uh, having different opinions as compared to the national interest. National symbols cannot be degraded, national symbols cannot be degenerated, and there has to be a commonality of purpose across party lines. Now, a country like India, which has multi-party system, the multi-party system will have multiplicity of opinions. Nothing wrong with that. But to get kind of cohesive views on even issues of national security sometimes is a bit difficult. And I feel it is in that context, today's conversation on bipartisan approach to national security becomes very, very relevant. And it is in that context, I would say that normally people will say, oh, Constitution of India is there, which is binding us all together. Well, it is, but so be it. When you look at the politics in and around India, you will see there is a some kind of cohesion of forces, both internal and external, and these forces are fused with each other when it comes to dealing with the present government. And the present government rightly has changed nation's approach. So New India is very different from the India which we saw before 2014. And recently, another thing happened which is very, very live in my mind, and that is some people who were speaking against national stand on Kashmir. Say, some photographers post 370 posted some pictures, some I would say irrelevant pictures and not putting the correct perspective. One Pulitzer Prize and a president of a regular political party registered under the election laws went publicly to commend those photographers. I wanted to ask, what was your grandmother doing? What was your father doing? What was your great grandfather doing when the constitution of this country recommended and absorbed that Article 370 is a temporary provision, and this was supposed to be done away with, and it was never going to be given a permanent structure within the system. Now, with those interests at the back of the mind, these people will have to prove their patriotism and bipartisanship when it comes to national security matters. And this is very, very fresh in my mind, in addition to all the changes that have happened in the past. I mean, Kashmir is integral part of India. A resolution has been passed in the parliament when your government was in power. What is your stand on that? What is your stand when it comes to 35A, when you talk of gender equality, etc., etc.? So I feel these are issues on which there can be no politics, but people have somehow been engaging in these issues, and we can see the fusion of some internal forces with the external enemies, and you can just see all that happening all across the country. Now, coming back to the crisis, so the crisis we have seen in recent times, and we have cracked it down. So we have actually changed the approach. So from a crisis situation to a crackdown has definitely defined what Indian security agenda is all about, and how policy changes have changed the way we have existed in the past. So February 2019, there was what we call surgical strike, and that happened because uh, uh, there was a suicide attack in Kashmir just a couple of months back. There was attack on one of our air bases. We all these things were basically there to provoke India into action and to shame India, basically trying to tell the world that, look, we will come inside your country, we will attack you, and dare you do anything to us. And with the result, and they were not really expecting a fiercity of action, because if we look at the timeline between 2001 to till 2014, you will see we kept getting attacked, and there was really no reaction from India, because India thought India's policy at that point in time was, we will isolate Pakistan and keep growing economically. So, but I think these are things better said than done, because we saw it was a failed strategy, and that really did not impair or bring any cost to Pakistan for that matter. Come 2014, governments changed, and so did the policy change. We said it is going to cost. So anybody who's harming my interest and my country, it is going to cost them, and we are going to simultaneously indulge in skillful maneuvering of international agencies, and that is what is going to define what leading powers will have to think about uh, India's aspiration and India's existence. And we will implement this with boldness, togetherness, and foreign nations will have to recognize that we are going to have a tough policy, which is going to be bold policy, and at the same time, we will also skillfully maneuver the international opinions and agencies. So, what are the characteristics of the new order? The characteristics of the new order have been that India will be assertive in its approach, and we will take risks, and we will also understand that domestic policy will be fused with the international politics, and we will be using all this internally and make use of every avenue to go forward and put our point forward also. So this is going to be a bit assertive and aggressive approach to the subjects which were kept pending for a very, very long time. And as I described, that no military action followed after 2001, 2002 attacks on India, and continued till 2014. And we kept suffering. Indian targets, we were virtually like sitting ducks. And when you watch the South Asian networks and security affairs, which were shaped by the assumption that there will be no reaction from New Delhi, and New Delhi will do everything to avoid war and instead focused on isolating Pakistan, it really didn't bring any, bore any results to us, and it was really not of much use to us. And national security definitely will have a bipartisan approach, and it interests everybody in this country to be safe, secure, rather than shake hands with the enemies. But when we see opposition parties, and especially the ones who are playing politics with these interests when it comes to national security, by seeking evidence that give us evidence of surgical strike, their approach towards Article 370 revocation, and diplomatic maneuvers. This is what has defined the changes which India as a nation has taken forward. And I give all credit to the people of this country, because people of this country were fed up with the past process. They were fed up with we being the sitting duck. And thus, that assertion coming from people strengthened the party. And with that strength at the back, the Prime Minister, the government, the present government, and Prime Minister's initiative could bring in those changes in line with what people demanded and how governance had to be unfolding. Now, a lot of people say, oh, because of BJP, you see a lot of aggression and assertiveness. I put it differently. Because people had already turned aggressive and assertive, that BJP government has come to power. And it is this strength which will build the nation forward, which will be the driving force, that people are motivated to working hard. People are motivated to bring in the changes. They are willing to accept certain costs to it. They are willing to step a little ahead of the normal routine duties, so to say. And that's how worldwide people need to understand how they need to deal with the new India. And amid all these waging wars, the Prime Minister Modi, between the supporters and the critics, it is noted that the political parties have to rise beyond bipartisanship, bipartisan interests, and focus on national security. Objective 2 is worth fighting for, because that's what our forefathers would have done. That's what we see across across the globe that the countries which are so-called great countries, countries which have done very well, they may have internal issues, they may have internal problems. But when it comes to external enemy, when it comes to putting nation first, they all stand behind the person who's leading the country at that point in time. They may choose to change the government, but when push comes to shove, then they are behind the leader of the country. And I see some of our in the multi-party system, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't go so far that they have no national interests at heart, but I definitely feel that sometimes the personal interests are fusing with the external enemy interests, which is where I find it really, really wrong, because every country will have internal divisions, will have internal problems, will have social problems, and the present government is actually doing the opposite, is trying to bring everyone together, breaching those gaps, and you're blaming the government for doing exactly the opposite. It's not just unfair, it's uncalled for, because if you are interested in the country, if you're a genuine person interested in the well-being of every Indian national, this is not how you conduct your business, whether in politics or so in society. And I'm very happy that today, in the age of social media and availability of resources of, say, education, online the studies, etc., we have far greater advantage as compared to the previous generations, where access to knowledge is not limited to few people. So access to knowledge, anyone can do fact checking, anyone can check the history, anyone can bring a counterpoint of view in a serious discussion and debate. And that is where people can start questioning. No, you're wrong, you did this wrong, this is what the fact says, this is how it has to be dealt with. It gives a different kind of strength to democracy. And I feel, while I have huge amount of respect for democracy and democratic institutions, I still feel there are issues and things on which questioning for the sake of questioning is a bad habit. And that's where I say all these things, one has to rise above bipartisanship. And these interests, there can be no two sides. There's only one side. Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India. There's only one side there. Terrorists who are attacking democratic institutions need to be done away with. There's only one side there. No matter how hard you try to befriend Pakistan, their policies are not going to change, because their existence depends on anti-India narrative and their ambition. You've got to deal with it. Jihadi forces, Islamist forces will keep seeking what they have sought for 700, 800 years. They are not going to change because you're pleading human rights with them. Their mindset, their heads need to alter, which is hard thing to ask. But while you're dealing with those forces, you need to pick up the right thinking people as well, because I'm sure there are a whole lot of people who are right thinking, and we need to set the narrative right as well when you're dealing with so many other countries. These are challenges, and India faces another set of challenges. Left-wing terrorism, which is so-called Naxal forces. No matter how hard you try, you think these people are going to change. That's their existence, and their existence is supported by anti-national causes, because there are forces who may not want India to progress, get ahead, etc., etc., and they will keep funneling and funding these kind of forces. So India will always have to stand up together and deal with them. Our forces are capable of dealing with them, and which they are going to deal with. Now, I think while our forces are dealing with such forces and dealing with such anti-national divisive forces, bipartisanship needs to be maintained, because these forces have not just enforced violence on my party. They have enforced violence on Indians. And end of the day, if I remember Sukma, B.C. Shukla, even he was killed. He was a Congress leader. So many people from Congress have been killed. Should you be questioning or siding with the left-wing terrorism while government of India is dealing with them? Because you are no longer in power, you will have a backdoor settlement with them. I think while dealing with while dealing with anti-national forces which have caused harm to the fabric of the country, there has to be bipartisanship, because left-wing terrorism is another form of terrorism, which former governments have dealt with, present government will have to deal with. And while present government is trying to quell it, please stand with them. It's not a question of questioning them and siding with some anti-national forces. And that's why I insist that bipartisanship needs to be maintained, and that's a common objective worth fighting for. One example which we see recently, and I thought that's an example worth bringing forward, because uh, people tend to belittle India's achievement, and I dislike it so much that India's achievement is no mean achievement. We've done some great job, and we've shown fabulous strength. There must be weaknesses, but we need to bridge those gaps and bridge those weaknesses. But while talking of strength, so you saw what China did. I'm not talking of what COVID-19 has done to as done to China, or China has done to COVID-19. I'm not on that. When I'm saying what China did prior to COVID-19, they tried to push UN Security Council to on the agenda of Jammu and Kashmir, and they were very clearly they were trying to isolate India, but exactly the opposite happened. We maneuvered it, and we disapproved all the charges, and frustrated all the efforts which China was trying to push in the United Nations Security Council and on Jammu Kashmir, Leh and Ladakh. We saw another thing when again the forces came together and they were trying to push their agenda on India in favor of Pakistan regarding palm oil thing. I'm not talking of the decision which happened yesterday and today, but I'm talking of a couple of months back when Malaysia, there was a growing deficit between India and Malaysia, and we were forced to pick up palm oil, and we declined that we shall not pick up the palm oil, and we could negotiate that aspect with Malaysia and telling them that please give up your trapping and import more Indian sugar. So Indian diplomacy actually showed its robust side, and we successfully maneuvered these aspects. And in fact, while in an attempt to isolate India, it was China which got isolated at the United Nations Security Council when it came to discussion on Jammu and Kashmir. So our efforts to revamp and restructure the military in response to security challenges, we see China is going to be China, Pakistan is going to be Pakistan. With these two things, we have to constantly deal with. I don't think any other country in the world has this kind of disadvantage, geographical disadvantage that we have of having the very aggressive nations in our backyard. So when we are dealing with security challenges, they are characterized by a quest to meet the needs of the forces. And when we are meeting the needs of the forces, why I'm emphasizing, because sooner you will see whenever the expense is made on the military establishment, you will suddenly see voices going up in air. There's so much of hunger, there's so much of this, so much of that, healthcare, invest, invest, invest. And invest means what? Not invest in Indian upgradation, research and development, but keep buying from MNCs. That's investment from some people's perspective. But I think the peace can only exist in any scenario as long as your borders and military establishment is strong. When your border and military establishment is strong, can your economy flourish? Otherwise, your economy will always be up for challenges. So whether it's the northern border, we have a challenge. On the eastern side, we have legal migration, and there's always a chance of one spark, one neglected spark can burn the whole fence. And that's where we see the challenge. We've already seen how eastern flank has been altered because of our neighborhood, Bangladesh. And when these are the security network challenges, obviously a kind of investment which needs to be made into weaponization of three branches of the military is something we can't really wish away. We can't wish away, but the approach has changed now. The approach is now we will be manufacturing in India. Unlike other times when we were placing such high quantity orders and not enforcing the Make in India program and not enforcing the transfer of technology program. The present government is very, very clear in its policy that while we may have to buy things from outside because our production capacity has not been enhanced over the years, we will keep building up our production capacity, and that's exactly what the present government has done. Keep enhancing the military establishments to production capacity, and you've seen Amethi is one such area where the gun production is happening, which is the requirement of military, paramilitary, etc., and we are on our way forward. So production capacity, which is giving jobs to people, which is adding to the GDP, and at the same time helping our military establishment. So strengthening military establishment by focusing on Make in India program and delivering on promises. So I just want to share, I don't know whether it will reach the policy guys or not, but I feel I can share it. And I assume somebody is recording and will send it where it needs to be sent in my name and say that that's my process of thinking. If you see the world, you will see China became China because they invested in production, and we all know that Russian military establishment is very, very strong. They are uh, they have little low strength in terms of economy, so they need some economic support of some sort. But their research and development is very, very high. So China invested in their firms, kept giving money, but kept seeking transfer of technology, and that's how they built their military. I think it's time we've shared a old equation with China, with Russia. We've got, I'm sure diplomatically we have pretty strong ties even today with them. But that could be one way of building the strength of Indian military, getting transfer of technology and manufacturing things within India. And that will help us build the economy alongside building the military, because um, uh, our neighbors are such that our military requirement will never be less. Our military requirement will always be more, and there will always be a lot of money which needs to be spent on the military establishment. So this is one way of cutting it down or furnishing that money by focusing on Make in India program and importing the technology instead of just buying the wares. And that has been the Chinese story. So there's a lesson which India can learn from this particular aspect. And that's how we can revamp and restructure the military establishment. And this is bipartisan, by the way. There can be no fight on this. There can be no questions from any side on this particular aspect. And this is necessary to strengthen the country. This is necessary to strengthen the forces, because our soldiers are our soldiers, irrespective of which party is in power and which party is out of power. These are not things on which you fight. Military needs to be taken care of, and that's how we can build on it. And I go back to Augusta Westland Deal. So we all know what happened in Augusta Westland Deal, and we also know Rafale. So you put the two deals together, you will know where the interest lies, and that's how India needs to work at. When you combine so many different contracts, that a services contract is separate, the production line contract is separate, 20 different contracts, and you say now talk about the cost. So these two are juxtaposed, just put them in opposition to each other, and you will know how the military strategies need to be dealt with. So deals have to be transparent, deals have to be government to government. Make in India needs to be emphasized. And that's how we will strengthen the GDP alongside strengthening the military establishment. And it has to be bipartisan approach to these subjects. And when we are defining national security in a multi-party democracy, so I will see we have representation across all ideological spectrum, and so it has been kind of cohesion, as I said earlier, is hard to achieve. And despite these challenges that exist, there remains a need to highlight the core national interests. So first thing first, we need to define what are the core national interests. Once we have defined the core national interests, those core national interests are going to be non-negotiable by all Indians, and that is a message Indians need to give to the um, politicians across party lines, that we are not going to negotiate on these aspects, and anyone who's found negotiating on these aspects, we will expose them. Let's take it upon ourselves as Indians. Let's take it upon. This is my duty, not because I'm a party representative, not because I am someone who's won some election. No, I'm an Indian, and that's my foremost identity, that I cannot tolerate anything which is anti-India. I mean, I may have my policies, I may have uh, uh, my issues, but those issues are not the one which are going to define me. If what is going to define me is on my national perspective, on national interest, there shall be no compromise, and I will not tolerate anyone who does that. And that is what is going to be defining cohesion in the interest of the country, and thus defining what core national interests are, irrespective of party affiliation. And many will say that these are enshrined in our constitution. There is a need to, I would say, there's a need to sift it in the contemporary perspective. Not everything is defined in the language and as per the examples that we need to. And landscape keeps changing, and thus we need to do something meaningful. Now, what are the key focus areas on which there can be no negotiation? These are both internal and external elements intertwined with each other's, as I said earlier. So Kashmir, for example, it will remain a flashpoint, and POK is something we need to discuss. Former governments were not discussing this. We need to discuss it, and we need to challenge Pakistan. So Kashmir will remain a flashpoint for some time, and foreign policy issue does, regardless of which major party heads the Indian government, this is an issue. And since this is an issue, it is non-negotiable. Anybody talking rubbish on this subject will not be tolerated by Indians. That's the message we need to give. Then China's relationship, for example, with India, and it may not have the same vitriol as Pakistan, but it definitely has a sense of competitiveness, and we can see that in daily action and reaction, and we can see that this one-upmanship constantly, and trying to subterfuge our interests, siding with Pakistan. This is going to remain a constant challenge for who's a great power, and these are power ambitions of China. And there was a general of Vietnamese origin, General Giap, Giap. He once said that whenever China does well, economically or otherwise, uh, its expansionist interests keep rising. So China is doing well economically right now. So they do have the expansionist interests. So whether it's South China Sea, whether it's Indian Ocean, or circling India all around, um, these interests are there. And one belt, one road is just one affirmation of that. And this will remain because of its challenge now to USA, for becoming the world power, and thus controlling India and areas around India and Indian Ocean is part of its ambition. We need to understand that. So that will remain as long as China is doing well economically, and it will remain a constant sore point for us. So there can be no two views on this. We have to understand that this must define our national interests, and we cannot allow that conversation around this particular point, and it is absolutely non-negotiable. And I'm just defining the non-negotiable aspects of uh, national security and national interest. Then there will be challenge to some utopian movements, some Naxal bodies, etc., etc. That challenge will remain, and anti-Indian forces will keep funding them, financing them, controlling media, controlling narratives. Again, it has to be non-negotiable. On these subjects, India shall not compromise, and we will not negotiate on this. Every Indian will come together in condemning such activities, and especially universities and the other such areas where these movements are dominating, and who are talking about Bharat tere tukde honge, etc., etc. This is absolutely non-negotiable. Then a lot of people are not paying attention, but I just thought I'll bring it up. That is climate change. Climate change is a reality, and COVID has shown us that whether it's cleaning Ganga or skies in Delhi or other areas, uh, climate change has its imperatives for us, and we are the pollutants because we are the ones who are causing pollution all over, needs to be understood. And this, from national security threat perspective also, we must understand, because the cost of well-being of such a large population is itself very large, and thus population measurement along in terms of control, along with climate change impacts and environmental perspective, these are non-negotiable. I think everyone has to come together on these aspects, and in this climate change itself, the border with Bangladesh becomes very vulnerable because of the distinct possibility that some areas are going to be drowned, etc., etc. So violence on that border is a security threat. Legal, illegal migration is what we have seen, and that is what we are to deal with. So I was just defining the non-negotiable aspects. There can be no negotiation on these aspects, and I must emphasize that there is devil inside. Devil inside is not inside all of us, but I would say devil inside the system. There are people sitting inside the system in position of power. No matter which party is in power, those people continue being in position of power, and who continue to implicitly or explicitly support Pakistan, China, and such interests. So I think that's non-negotiable. And I feel sometimes to have not so bright policymakers suits those interests, because there are people who do not understand the policy to that depth, and it suits these interests to carry on working and keep pushing their agenda in the garb of system. So I think that systemic change also we must highlight and bring up. And in these internal challenges coming from various sources, so large number of migrants we've seen across Bangladesh border, and I'm relating it to what happened in Delhi, Shaheen Bagh, where Sharjul Imam said, let's separate Assam from rest of the country. So those are, so while we are focusing on northern border, eastern border, eastern flank is very, very vulnerable, and we need to keep looking at that aspect also. Nepal I was very pleased that I read today that some palm oil was being foisted and being sent to India via Bangladesh and Nepal, because we have trading agreement with these two nations. But India has now altered that, because trading agreement with these two nations are only for the things produced by these countries. So Nepal does not produce palm oil, nor does Bangladesh produce palm oil. Very clearly, other countries are using these two countries only as a base to send their produce via these areas, and trying to seek the benefit or misutilize the benefit of FTA. So government has very rightly cut that out, and has cancelled that aspect, and they are not importing palm oil via Bangladesh or Pakistan. So these countries will always be used for these kinds of transactions. So we have to be careful with these, and influence of other countries going in these two countries. These two countries are friendly countries with Pakistan, but they also have their own internal issues. Maoists in Nepal are a challenge, and we know how monarchy was set aside, and how in the name of democracy the government was made. But and Nepal has always been traditional friend of India, both culturally and in every aspect. So we have long-standing FTAs with these countries and all other agreements. Other enemy nations are trying to take advantage of that. I wouldn't say enemy nations, but other countries with which we don't have those FTAs, they are trying to take advantage of these agreements, and we'll have to be watchful vis-a-vis Nepal and Bangladesh being two areas which other countries may try to use as a base. And again, these interests cannot be negotiated at all. These are non-negotiable aspects of political existence and political stability. Periodic violence, I'm sure, will keep happening as much as inflow of certain other elements will be pushed. So migrant inflows, etc. In the garb of migrant inflows, these are challenges which are which are there, and I'm sure our forces are well prepared to deal with them, and we will have to continuously deal with them. It's not as if I dealt with them for 2 months and then I'm all right. This is a challenge of your existence. As long as India is there, these challenges will remain, and you'll have to constantly battle these challenges. Then internally, India has Maoist Naxals again. This has been in existence from independence. From India's independence, these forces have existed, one shape or the other shape, and various internal security challenges have been brought up because of these forces. So sometimes they will rake up caste, sometimes they will rake up ethnicity, sometimes they'll continuously linguistic rights, they will continuously keep pricking. They have existed since 1947, 50 and all that. We will have to deal with them. Constantly we'll have to deal with them. But we have to be prepared that they come in such peaceful shapes that people don't realize that what are the implications of these forces when it comes to national security and challenges. And these forces may sound benign, but they are not benign. They are infuriating the minds, and they are actually polluting the minds of youngsters. So we have to be aware of these challenges and make it absolutely non-negotiable part of our policy. Uh, what are the influences impacting, I would say, hinterland terrorism at national level, Jammu Kashmir, militancy, left-wing kind of things, in certain extremist kind of militancy in northeastern states, left-wing terrorism in the central and eastern junction, then money laundering. We all know Hawala, drug money, etc. And we are at that triangle where drug trafficking is one of the funneling agencies for um, uh, arms supply and so many other illegal activities. Uh, some of these forces may bring up social tensions. We have to be very, very aware of these aspects. by harping on caste. So we saw how left-wing terrorism is directly linked to caste, and constantly harping at BJP. We have the highest number of SC/ST MPs in the parliament as compared to any other party. And they'll continuously blame us for caste tensions. We have nothing to do with caste tensions. But we have to be aware that these fellows will try and exploit these social dimensions, and it is absolutely non-negotiable. Then regional and interstate disputes. So sometimes there's water, sometimes this is some river, sometimes electricity, sometimes road, migrants. So interstate disputes, again, which party is in power in that state will determine their policy, instead of taking India as a whole, like every migrant in Delhi is my person. They have not shown that respect. And that depends on the mindset, the smallness or the large-heartedness of the mind and heart will determine, and they can increase these tensions. And I think these are, again, non-negotiable interests. We've seen it during the COVID issue itself, because regionalism is something, I would say, regionalism has a beauty to its story, and we respect all languages, cultures, food. I'm more fond of uh, food from southern India and western India than the area I'm born in, and I have huge respect for all those states. And I feel I'm an Indian first before being a Punjabi or somebody coming from Delhi. Now that attitude has to be maintained by everyone, that people across different states are Indians first. And I feel uh, the state identity cannot be overemphasized beyond your national interest. So state identity is secondary in nature. The first identity is the identity of India as a whole. Like I'm a Andhraite, I'm a Telugu first. No, I'm an Indian first, and then I'm a Telugu. I'm a Indian first, then a Punjabi. Those challenges, also identity challenges, also are there. Uh, all of us are on internet. We are using Zoom, and I believe Zoom sold the data on darknet just a few days back. So cybersecurity and cyber challenges also is a challenge which India is likely to face uh, far more. And again, this is a non-negotiable aspect. While we are controlling our borders and everything, today the biggest threat is coming from cyber attacks also. So cyber attacks also are non-negotiable, while border attacks we all get to see physically and part of border management. Similarly, cyber attacks is another aspect. Coastal security, we have such a large coastline, which is both a boon and a challenge. So your focus on the Navy and naval aspect, we showed it recently while we reached out to the countries on the Indian Ocean and safeguarded people, brought them back to India. We have shown our prowess, and we have to continuously show our prowess on the naval forces and uh, managing this coastal security. I've spoken about all these challenges, but the biggest challenges of all times are poverty, crime, and corruption. We need to have a government. We are very lucky that in our lifetime we saw a government which is beyond corruption and which is dealing with poverty at the heart and is also dealing with crime. But crime remains a state subject, and all states should put in their effort together while dealing with it. And thus, I think if we see this and we can amalgamate both external and internal security threats, we will be able to make India grow in strength, from strength to strength, and make the India of our dreams. Because while we all discuss economic well-being, health structures, education, all those things do not exist in vacuum. those things exist with a sense of responsibility and security. So first and foremost, we need to all come together on identifying these issues and make them non-negotiable across party lines, across individuals, and say this is what India will not take lying low. This is what we will not accept, whether from internal forces or from external forces, and these are non-negotiable in nature. Only then can we build our country together and thus establish bipartisanship across. So, mental health, physical health, economic well-being, uh, environment, bio warfare. We've seen recently a lot of conversation around this. Electronic warfare, information warfare. These are just techniques. These techniques are used for what? Destabilizing the country. What do these thoughts do? These thoughts are destabilizing the country. So unless there is a cohesion of thought process, identification of national interests, bipartisanship about national interests, that's what awareness is all about, and that's what will make the India as India of our dreams, as we all have. Our forefathers have put in their life at stake to make India, and we must continuously put in that effort and deal with these challenges, face threats constantly. We will be facing threats, but magnitude of threats will determine who we are, and greater we are, greater threats are likely to be there. But but I guess power begets power. So we all have to come from the place of strength, show our strength, and uh, keeping in mind national security first at our hearts, creating more awareness around this subject, that India will be able to sustain all these threats, and thus formulation of bipartisanship interests across party lines and national security itself uh, uh, will will be a challenge, and which democracy needs to sustain, and essential to go after people who are selling the country, and not after the opposition as a whole. I would say not everyone, not every political opposition is anti-India. Political opposition is one aspect, but when it comes to these subjects, as I try to line it up, we must accept that we will not accept this. Challenging, nobody challenges these subjects. Nobody speaks against our forces. Nobody talks about Jammu and Kashmir. Nobody talks about China. We all know how China has demoralized our forces, how China um, did not make invasion of that kind, but economic invasion, we've seen it. Till 84, till 1984, there was no interaction with China. Post Indira Gandhi, there has been interaction with China, and in that interaction, all kinds of governments came to power. 70s, it was a Janata Party government, but there was still no interaction. And 84 onwards, we see the downfall of Indian economy and rise of China. Uh, there can be no two views on this, that how certain forces within our country have supported this. And we need to bring them forth and understand that this has been a challenge to our existence. Uh, Tolerance, criticism are all justified. Those things I'm not even bringing up. But when it comes to national security, respect for law and order, these are the cornerstones of our democracy, and we demand bipartisanship on that. And for that, uh, approach like my way or highway cannot cannot be tolerated, and it does not matter. We've seen enough of combine of Sonia Rahul, left-wing, Naxals. These are things that nobody can get away by praising a Pulitzer winner who's talking of independent Kashmir. We cannot allow that, and that will not be tolerated. And that is the ultimate answer, which I would say not my party needs to give, but that is what Indians need to understand, and that is what Indians need to deal with, and that is what Indians should work around. These were my points, and anyone who has any kind of questions, I will take questions for a while. Just checking the time, it's 6:04. So we have almost half an hour in which we can take the questions.
Yeah, maybe 30, 40 minutes. Yeah. Thank you so much, madam. It was a wonderful overview that you gave. And I think the red lines that you spoke about in terms of non-negotiable things, what are your thoughts on how should we deal with the parties or leaders who cross those red lines, right? For instance, Adhir Ranjan, the leader of Congress party in Lok Sabha, he spoke about Kashmir being disputed. Rahul Gandhi recently tweeted where, the hashtag anti-national Rahul was trending very aggressively. And then you had, the Tabligis, whatever they did is actually anti-national. I mean,
Of course.
yeah. So all these, whatever red lines are there, how do we deal with it? Let's say, for instance, the Sedition Act cannot be invoked on them.
Okay, so I personally feel, I look at myself and I feel many a times due to my bringing up, my training as a child and later as a grown up, and of course how I would have brought up my children, we are hesitant to be misbehaved in public spaces, and that is what, of course, we are decent citizens is one part of the story. But when you are dealing with such forces, I think somewhere shaming these forces logically. So preparing on the subject, coming up with proper picture documentation is the best way. When people talk about, say, in fact, I have that question to everyone. When I'm criticizing Tabligis, I'm not criticizing Muslims.
Correct.
Right? So I have to put that across to Muslims. Do you all fall under the class of Tabligis? Do you all spit on the people? How do you, so we have to, now what has happened in this entire conversation? Entire conversation, instead of Muslims standing up against the Tabligis, they have stood with Tabligis. A large number. Not all, but a large number. We have to confront them. We have to ask them, look, forget Tablighi, forget who. You tell us, do you admire people for spitting on doctors? Do you agree to the fact that Corona will go away of its own and Allah has sent it to kill the kafirs? Do you agree that spitting on police is the right thing to do? Do you agree spreading this virus across is the right thing to do? That is what we have to confront. And if you do not agree, let's get one of the Tablighis to spit on you. Let's get him. What is it to do with it? So put the right questions and make them, I think, shaming people and tell them, do you stand for this? Don't ask that Tablighi, don't ask. You say, do you people who are coming in, who are standing with Tablighis, do you stand for spitting in public places? Do you stand for spitting in the dough of the bread? Do you agree to that? Tell us that. I think right kind of question while keeping the decencies of conversation alive is very, very important, because what you say and how you communicate also is relevant. I don't think we need to get abusive, aggressive unnecessarily, but pitching the right logical, rational question is important.
Yeah, but then when somebody says Kashmir is disputed and that kind of a stuff.
No, you just say, you read Article 1 of the Constitution, put it up. State of Jammu and Kashmir is part of, it's listed at, I think, at 67 or something. It's listed there. So you just put this up. You see, you are talking of, you don't abide by the Constitution of India. Are you trying to say Constitution of India does not apply to you? You have no business to be in this country then, if you don't respect the Constitution. Because Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India as per the Constitution of India.
But should you not bring up a sedition, proceeding against them?
See, those activities will continue. I'm saying those activities parallelly will continue. That act of sedition, take down this post, and I would say aggressively pursue. Everyone should come together, force Twitter and Facebook, because these guys are doing business in India. And if they are going to support these kind of conversation, we will not deal with them. So keep pushing these platforms to take down those posts.
Yeah, I think Anant Kumar Hegde and I think and his colleagues, they started tweeting on something which Twitter did. They collected money from anti-nationals and they allowed ads to go on. And so instead of really taking them down or doing something against the people who funded them, they just simply blocked Anant Kumar Hegde's Twitter handle.
No, I don't want to speak on individual cases. I'm talking about generalization, because each case will have to be determined differently.
Sure.
I'm saying within the legal limits and within the constraints, whatever best can be done, we all must come together to support each other.
Definitely, madam. So we'll start the Q&A. I'll start with Ram Kumar ji. Ram Kumar ji, please go ahead.
Namaskar ji. This is Ram Kumar from Mumbai. Madam, my question is, hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, very quick question. One of the major issues which is confronting India, which is a cause for a strife, many believe, is the rise of unemployment. Today, we are touching somewhere around 8.5% of unemployment in India in 2020. And with the agriculture also taking, is also going down. Now, don't you think with these influx of Indians from abroad, from various countries, because of the local conditions in those countries, it's going to be aggravating? Now, don't you think that we have to do something very quickly to make sure that there's no crime in India which can be related to unemployment?
So I don't think Indians commit crime because of unemployment. There are, I have a very different kind of respect for poor Indians. We all live with less money, but we don't become criminals. And that is what I keep saying to everyone, that Kashmiri Pandits have suffered, but they never became terrorists. And so crime is a separate mindset you're dealing with, but dealing with unemployment is very important. And I feel one point we keep missing. We keep saying India, India, India. India is a conglomerate of so many states. Employment happens at the state level. And states need to initiate and take their part of GDP. While we are trying to increase the GDP and while we are trying to develop industry and create more employment, skill training, etc., is what we are doing. 3 states in India have altered their labor laws, and labor laws to make it more balanced. While the labor with income is protected, insurance, etc., all that is granted, and their well-being is looked after. At the same time, hitting at the union bazi, because all these things were taking the industry down. Now, one biggest example is the example of Calcutta. Calcutta, before partition and before Indian independence, and even a decade post independence, was the engine which was industrial engine which was generating power for rest of India. Now look where Calcutta is because of this kind of politics. So 3 states, state of Uttar Pradesh, state of Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat, have tweaked with their labor laws. Until unless you do those things, you cannot deal with unemployment and economy per se. So you need to focus on certain radical changes which are protective of the labor and at the same time do not allow disruptive. And that is what we need to balance and take the engine of employment forward. Employment is not something which center can determine by itself. Center will do its part, but states need to come forward, because construction, housing, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, roads, these are all activities which will generate in the states, and states have to be partners in this establishment. And if all these NRIs were driving, say, remuneration and sending it back home and funding state of Kerala all this while, which was leading in GDP, is this not the responsibility of state of Kerala to take care of all the Malayalis who are likely to come back to this state? And that goes for every other state, Telangana, Andhra. All these people are benefited by their citizens from those particular states being employed outside. They have fed the state back. They have given India back, and I think it's our responsibility to take care of them. So state and center both have their share of responsibility. States can't shirk away from this responsibility. While the data comes, data will be the data of India, but I think we need to recast the die and start identifying the state data, and then shame those states who are not generating employment but keep questioning the center.
Perfect. Indira ji, please go ahead, madam.
Yeah, madam, I have two questions. One, I heard that certain channels are getting foreign funding. Is it legitimate? Is it legally challengeable? Or can they get like that? The other thing is you said so many non-negotiables. The opponents say that they all come under freedom of speech and freedom of expression, etc. Can we make any amendment to the Article 19 Clause 2 that some of the things cannot be said? Because even in US, in America, when these people were eliminated, like Saddam Hussein and then this one is there now. So when they were eliminated, nobody said anything. They say they didn't take any, the media didn't take any stand against the government. Most of the time, they towed the line of the government in the foreign policy, media also, not only the other parties. So why is it happening in our country? What's the reason? I think this is because of appeasement. Mostly that is so in Article 370.
Ma'am, I have a slightly different opinion, and my opinion is that there was a time there was no foreign funding was allowed in media till the policy changed in 90s, and then foreign funding was allowed, and it became business. So when it became business and foreign funding did come into some of the platforms and channels and all those things, so they started reflecting different points of views, because the money is coming from them, and editorial charter is decided by some other size. Then certain media channels became the party channels, because parties directly, indirectly funded those channels at the stage of inception under different garbs, which we saw in one or two cases. We've seen it, and they are like private enterprise. Now, one will have to see how that can be checked, but inflow of foreign funding right now is rooted through central measures, and only in only after certain approvals that can come. But media funding in media beyond a certain limit, I'm not very sure how much. It's 38% or something like that is not allowed. Whatever money had to come has already come in that place. But how Indians need to deal with it, I think the moment most people boycott those channels and stop watching, so that the revenue share goes down, and make and say we will not watch, and say we will not give you this. See, they are surviving because we are watching. The moment this happens, their survival becomes extinct. And because of survival becomes extinct, they will be dealt with. So people will understand that if you want to sell it in India, this is the directive of the people of India, and you need to follow that. And that's why I'm saying more and more awareness about these subjects. And if USA became a nation and a great nation, it became a great nation because of its people. They respect democracy, they fight with each other, but on issues of foreign policy, on issues of national interest, governments change, but their stands don't change. And they continue to, the establishment continues. And I think that's what we need to bring about in India, which is what I feel is missing as of now, but gradually building towards that, and I'm sure we will build it up. Second question of yours was that can we change Article 19? There's nothing wrong with Article 19. There's nothing wrong with the interpretation of Article 19. Freedom of speech, like privacy, can never be absolute. So freedom of speech is there as long as I'm not causing harm to the national interest, as long as I'm not being abusive to somebody else's interest. Freedom of speech is not an absolute right. It does not give me right to abuse. It does not give me right to criticize my country unnecessarily, talk rubbish, talk of divisions of the country, and thus law of sedition. So freedom of right exists as long as freedom of speech exists, as long as my right is not violating somebody else's existence and threat to my own country. So nothing wrong with the right, but it's how it is exercised also needs to be understood.
Thank you, Van. Kishore Dattu ji.
Okay, yeah. Namaste, Meenakshi ji. It was a very broad explanation of all the bipartisan. Sorry. Hello. Is it audible? Yeah. So thanks very much, Meenakshi ji. So my question is, when you talked about the non-negotiable things, and especially in India, when you see the central subjects like Kashmir and all this, it always, the state, the regional parties have nothing to say on that, mainly. Even in the manifesto also, we don't see them. So how do we force, or how do we push that more regional parties also take a stand on these national subjects? Because they always get away by saying, because it's a central subject, we don't have to worry about it or anything like that. So is there any way, or what is the role of regional parties in building the bipartisan thing?
So I would say this is all right. When they are not, they are keeping themselves away to while speaking on Kashmir and all, because they recognize it's a central subject, and not actively saying anything means they are supporting the government. They are supporting the center. This is not a bad stand. This is a completely understandable sentence, understandable methodology. What is not understood, that some parties who may be otherwise be called national parties because they have national existence across states in sheer electoral terms, are the ones who are found at fault when it comes to 370, CAA, etc. And it has been their agenda. In the past, the governments, whenever these parties have been in power, this has been nation's agenda. It's just that they could not successfully carry it out. We carried it out. And today they are the ones who are questioning. So my problem is not with the ones who choose to abstain from speaking on these subjects, which means they are with the government and it's not necessary for them to take a stand. And they will take action against anyone if somebody is speaking against the nation. That's fine. But the ones who are actively participating against, that's where I have a problem.
Yeah, sure. Next is Krishnan ji. Please go ahead, sir.
Namaste. It was a very nice talk. I have two major questions, and I'm asking these questions with the understanding that you are an insider. Okay, and so we outsiders have a lot of questions actually. I believe that the government has a perception problem, in the sense that you talked a lot about non-negotiable and things like that. But the thing is that there almost seems to be no follow-up. There is nothing strong action that the government is taking. What we see as a layman or laywoman is that there is only one person, a strong person, who is actually controlling everything, and the rest of the government, so to speak, is a very lightweight sorry to be so harsh. I mean, this can't go on. This can't go on. I mean, the government has to collectively at least show that it is quite strong. And so right now, it's a target for every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and even the dog on the street.
Krishnan ji, can you be brief, please?
Yeah. I mean, this is the preamble, so to speak.
Yeah, but let's cut the preamble so she knows it. Can you be please? I request you because she has to leave early. Yeah.
I want to know. One prime example is for the past, only yesterday, day before, we had another talk where we were all lamenting on cultural aspects of the previous regime which have not been corrected. For example, a glaring example is the NCERT textbook, which still glorifies the atrocities committed by Mughals. And our former education minister, Prakash Javadekar, is very proud and saying that we have not changed a single line of the NCERT textbook. So I want to know, and another thing is that a lot of the crooks in the bureaucracy who were there in the previous regime are still making merry in the current regime. So I really, I'm sort of.
No, you're still not asked your question, sir.
How is it that the government is functioning? What exactly?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, she'll take it from there. She knows the rest of it. I think she understands. Thank you.
So I would say when I say the forces continue, I meant that while the leadership changes, but that does not mean the entire bureaucratic setup changes. People do remain within the system, and that becomes an interest groups. So you are lamenting about the interest groups which are in existence, but I must say that a lot of interest groups, it's an ongoing process. You can't change the entire setup in no time. You need very smart people who can handle these situations and who can handle the bureaucracy well. Rest of it I need not elaborate upon, but all I can say is that some forces do prefer people with less knowledge and less understanding because easy they are to be maneuvered, and people with greater knowledge and lesser maneuverability will take stock differently, and that's what it is all about. And my personal admiration for the two guys on the job is immense when it comes to the Prime Minister, HM, and top echelons, Mr. Gadkari, Pragna ji, party president. I think they are all people who are toiling day and night and who are trying to put the perspective forward. And the gaps, I'm sure, are likely to be addressed, and they will. It's a constant, again, like challenges are constant, these revamps are also constant, and constantly you have to upgrade, more skill. You take this forward.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I request everybody who's going to ask a question to be brief. See, the time is running out, and so you give a prelude to it, and then we want to lose time. That's a humble request. Ravindra Pandita ji.
Sir, Jai Sharda.
Jai Sharda.
Ma'am, no questions, ma'am. Only congratulations on abrogation of Article 370.
Thank you.
I have a list of 14 temples right now in my valley. My question is about my history and culture. These 14 temples are, ma'am, functional now 24/7. I would like every one of you, like Mr. Girdhar visited recently. I also keep on visiting. I have 2 ashrams out there, Guru ashrams. So my question is about the basic seat of learning, that is Sharda Peeth. We have never been assertive on Sharda Peeth, though last year only we got Kartarpur corridor reopened despite tensions between 2 countries. And I went to Kartarpur corridor on 24th of November last. So if I can undertake an yatra to Pakistan, why not my Sharda Peeth? We are only basic. Ma'am, we should have done it in 2007 when LOC permit was formulated under Ministry of External Affairs. You know, that continued. Now it is temporarily suspended. We should have brought in an amendment to allow.
Ravindra Panditaji, Meenakshi ji is more than aware of the entire story.
I know.
I don't think. Yeah, I think we'll leave it. She'll answer for it. Thank you.
I will simply say one thing. My mother's family came from Kashmir, and this must have been third or fourth migration from Kashmir in the history of Kashmir. And that side is there are Kashmiri Pandits on that side. And I am aware of Sharda Peeth. I'm aware of all these things. Also, the fact which not many people are aware of, but I thought I'll discuss it on this platform, especially looking at Panditaji. In the peak of difficulties in early 2090, late 1998, 99, 2000, that period. From that period, I've worked at restoring the temples, and I went and restored the Pindi of Mata in Kulgam also. So Vinod Pandit.
Vinod Pandit, yeah.
I work with all of them on a and Swami Nityanand ji, he's no more, he's died of cancer, but all these people I have worked with quietly for so many years. So I completely understand your sentiment, and I wish maybe, I don't know what God has chosen, what work God has chosen for me, and I support your cause.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Next is, I think, Sri Narayan ji. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Namaste, madam. Meenakshi, madam. Namaste. Actually, 2 points I want to raise. One is regarding whatever we try to do our actions. The opponents do tell that we are against minorities, but according to me, nobody is concentrating on the welfare of minorities, and this COVID time is the very luckiest period for BJP to initiate the steps of minorities. I am telling you the situation that we faced in our village. The thing is, during the early days of COVID, a list was given that these are the preventive medicines for homeo, these are the preventive medicines for Ayurveda, these are the preventive medicine from Unani, like that. And Ayurveda and homeo, they are at that time they are very much so much of confusion state, so that we knocked the doors of mullahs, seeking them the Unani medicines. The mullahs are not in a position to supply the medicines to us. Even me myself went to a mullah's house. I asked that, "जी वो medicine मुझे चाहिए." So situation ऐसा हुआ. मतलब अभी situation ऐसा होना चाहिए कि अगर ज़्यादा यूनानी colleges खुला हुआ तो मतलब total India पर only 24 Unani colleges are there. If total Unani colleges got established across the nation, roughly 20 to 30 colleges per state, like that, there will be a huge and massive employment in the public books publications and medicine formation, medicine, pharmaceuticals, and Unani nursing courses. And to learn Unani, one has to learn Arabic. So everywhere the Arabic coaching centers will be established. So a lot of employment for the Arabic in amongst the Muslim communities will be there. But no person is concentrating this particular thing, and in this situation, by telling that government, this is because of this reason Unani medicine is not into the public's reach, because of only 24 colleges across the nation are present.
But can you please ask your question, please?
This is the number one question. Number two question is, in India, so in here and there, the monuments of Jinnah are present. For example, in our state headquarters nearby Guntur, there is a 75 feet Jinnah tower, which is constructed pre-independence period, was present. One movement is being formed by one senior journalist at Visakhapatnam to demolish that tower, because Jinnah is not an Indian, etc. So people are telling that it is pre-independence period. So what to say?
But Narayan ji, you're just going on and on. I asked you to ask a question, not a story.
So how to make that movement?
Yeah, thank you.
How to make that movement?
Let us
How
try
to demolish that movement?
It's yours to do. Test it, karna, she can test it on another.
Yeah.
We can use your computer. Sorry. So I would say these are state subjects, and I'm sure Ayush Mantralaya can help the states in establishing whatever they want. And when we say of parallel indigenous methods of dealing with it, it's not just Unani medicine or homeopathic medicine. There's a lot of Ayurveda also. And I'm sure people can start learning Sanskrit if they at all want to establish themselves in Ayurveda, or even if they don't, BMS is a degree recognized by Government of India in which teachings are happening in English and other mediums as well. So I would say that if establishing more colleges, etc., is the need of the hour, that will be done. Unani medicine is one format, so whatever is available with the colleges which are already establishing and teaching methodologies, I cannot really comment on that because these are state subjects and it's up to the states to establish whatever. So Unani medicine one, very simple, ashwagandha, just order it on Amazon, start taking, it builds your immunity. Without having to read Sanskrit or Arabic, you can do that. Or starting to eat Chyawanprash, for example, vitamin C is basically the core content. Iron and vitamin C and zinc are and metals are part of it. So we have all those as integrated part of Indian medicine system, in which there's not just Unani, but we have Tibetan medicine. We have I think Ayush Mantralaya is the right ministry for all this. And again, do not take it otherwise, but if Tabligis have come to a particular establishment and others are also operating out of the same establishment, Corona lockdown will have to be obeyed. I'm not able to meet my physician. I just speak to him on the telephone, or we can do video conferencing. I guess even with these establishments, you need to do the same.
Yeah. In fact, in Kerala, all the Christians are learning Ayurveda and then they're running institutions there. So even Muslims can learn it. There's no restriction. Anybody can learn it. Sir, Mr. Sagar Mitkare.
Yeah.
You have muted yourself, Sagarji. Sagarji, yeah, now you talk.
Good evening, ma'am. Sagar Mitkari from Nagpur. Ma'am, there is this some sort of grapevine that after this pandemic, which is suffering to all the countries, this particular country is trying to buy some sort of media space by way of editorials, and they are trying to influence overall thought process of the individuals in the country by way of affecting the editorial space basically. And some people who are actually able to see it through, they are trying to convince other people ki अरे ये पूरा narrative बनाने की कोशिश है, and it's not happening. So what exactly as a government of India, or for that matter as a ruling party, how exactly we plan to take it across, ma'am? Thank you.
I do not know what our strategy is, but I think the biggest trump card we have is our Prime Minister. When Prime Minister says something, people simply listen to him and obey what he says. So the faith and trust that people have on the Prime Minister is immense. So I would say PM in single stroke yesterday when he said Swadeshi Atmanirbharta, that has gone down with every Indian of every class of Indians. So without, you don't have to be a PhD to read an obscure editorial published in some portal or in English newspaper. India, what percentage of Indians speak English any one way? Or for that matter, we have such a huge network and people have faith in the Prime Ministership, and more than the faith, intelligence also. We are very, very intelligent people. People know how when we came in interaction with a couple of other countries, how those countries have benefited out of us, and we have been downgraded not just economically but scientifically also. So I think you don't need a computer scientist to understand this aspect. A common Indian understands it, and a common Indian follows his or her own heart, and will deal with such situations as well.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I think we'll wind up with just last two questions, and then we'll let it go. Ritesh ji, please go ahead.
Yes. Hello. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
You've spoken about Sharjil Imam and all those things, ma'am. The reason why I feel that many people talk ill against our countries, they know that many politicians and many media houses come out in open and support them. And to stop them, the fear should be instilled amongst the people who talk against the nation, and also with the politicians and also the media person who support them, ma'am. Suppose if this kind of statements were made in countries like USA, that we will separate Alaska from USA, nobody would even dare to even talk about it in countries like USA or other developed countries. But India, they're taking freedom of speech and telling all the nonsense, and I don't know. So maybe that fear should be instilled in the people who talk against India, and more importantly, action against the media personnel and the politicians who come out in open and support those people.
So can I just quickly say that state will do its own duty, but people of the country need to do their part of the duty. One is TRP of all those channels and credibility of all those journalists should be brought down in the eyes of people. That once a person who speaks this language says something else, I'm not going to clap, I'm not going to comment, and I'm going to make them irrelevant. They gain relevance by currency. So moment they stop getting currency, their relevance goes. And that's where I need your support. State will do its own duty, file cases, run around the courts and all that. But as a common Indian, as a nationalist, I feel I will stop watching certain channels. I will stop listening to certain people. I will stop reacting to some people's existence. And the only reaction they will get is exposing them that you are anti-national. You are condemnable. The words are. So once they know that narrative is changing against them, they are not fools. They will either change the path or they will be discarded to the garbage of Indian history. So whichever way, I think people's level of awareness is what we need to instill. Rest will happen.
Thank you. And the last question, Srinivas Tatipalli, please go ahead. Srinivas ji. Yes, Srinivas ji, you can talk now. Okay, I think there's some problem with this mic, it looks like. I think we'll leave it. We'll take one last question. I think it is Vijay Bhaskar Reddy, please. Vijay Bhaskar Reddy, ask.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, thank you very much. Namaste, Bahanji. This is Dr. Vijay Bhaskar Reddy. I was very pleased to hear the Prime Minister's speech. It almost sounded like a Sang Baudik. So very pleased. My question is the labor laws. What is being done about it? Because people say there is unemployment, but the businesses and other people who want employees, they're not getting people to work because of this Manrega and other things. People are getting free money, and the government officials are pocketing their share of it. So we are actually subsidizing inefficiency. So what's going to happen about this?
Thank you.
So I think if we link Manrega to state roads or employment or building homes, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, etc., those will be the changes where you will see that assured income will also lead to the growth of GDP and correct amounts to be given to people for the work they do. Assured income is basically that this much minimum income will reach, but that means you have to be employed also. If you can get employed somewhere, this gets to be linked to some real work, unlike the previous systems where it was not linked. Today it is linked, and we will see that states of UP, Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat, it will be dealt with very effectively, and how India needs to become the engine of economic growth will also be determined that as much local availability of labor and skilled labor for the kind of job they are doing and the right parity of income will determine how we function now. Past sluggishness in the economy and a lot of people were afraid of investing in India was because of the unionbazi which was going on, and that is why these reforms were important. And I'm repeating myself, if you see, it is available on the website, and some articles have also been written. Just this morning's news you will get that labor law reforms were important for economy to restart, and only then investment will come and establishment of factories, etc. I linked it to Calcutta. You saw what happened in Nandigram way back when Tata was trying to establish an engine for a car manufacturing unit, and Tata's was not allowed. Now Tata's is an Indian company which has promoted nothing but India and nothing but Indian companies, whether it's a Jaguar or it's other cars in low income range. Tata's done that. And for a company like Tata not to get land or getting the land and then creating that kind of ruckus, would that not impede the growth, and would that not impede the employment? If employment availability needs to increase, so is the business need to be addressed. Unless you address the business need, you cannot increase the employability, and thus certain tweaking of processes, at the same time protecting the labor, protecting the migrants, protecting the labor rights in terms of their hours, in terms of their salary, in terms of their insurance, in terms of all the good things, health, etc., need to be protected. At the same time, nobody needs to be getting money without having to work, and that's the new methodology which is being worked out.
Fantastic. Madam, I think we'll close the Q&A there. Before we let you go, I thought we will show you the temple which you are part of in building up, constructing in Bombay, Katyayani Mata Mandir in Kulgam. So I was fortunate to visit this a few times, and so Vinod Pandit is very fond of you and he keeps telling a lot about you. So I thought I'll share this with you. So in this horrendous period, we seek our blessings as well.
So I'm really grateful because I haven't been to this temple in a long time.
Yeah.
And I remember Deepak, who lives very close by and who protected the shrines Pindi for a long time during terrorist attacks and all that. So I remember everybody, every Hindu family in that village and around that area. I've done it on foot, this entire area. And the day I left, there was the moment I left around that evening, next evening, where I was supposed to stay the night, there was a bomb blast.
Yeah.
So I have all kind of memories of this place.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
looking really beautiful. It was not in this condition earlier. It's really looking beautiful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we hope to see you more often in Kashmir, madam. Though I am from Hyderabad, I claim that my second home is Kashmir.
I claim that 400 years ago, my family had to migrate. The surnames also went away. So
fantastic, fantastic.
I still claim my Kashmiri roots.
Definitely. Great. That's really great. Thank you so much, madam, for sparing time today and, being with us and taking all the questions patiently. And we wish that you be safe and, your contribution at the parliament and, at the national level takes Bharat to its glory. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you. Bharat Mata Ki Jai. Namaste.
Bharat Mata Ki Jai. Namaste. Namaste.